Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take your complex sources, find the patterns, and hopefully give you some strategic clarity. And today, we're tackling something I think everyone struggles with at some point. It's this difference between a genuinely good opportunity and, well, a really tempting detour. We live in this, culture that just loves the quick win. If a door opens easily, looks shiny, we just assume, yep, that's for me. Mm-mm. But this obsession with speed, it makes it so easy to confuse what's just accessible with what you're actually assigned to do. So our sources today, they really zero in on this distinction. It's uncomfortable, yeah, but crucial. Genuine direction versus deceptive distraction. We're going to unpack this truth. Not every open door, no matter how good it looks, is actually good for you. Our mission here is to give you kind of discernment framework. Think of it as a strategic survival guide, really, to tell true alignment apart from those detours that just drain you.
And, the stakes for you, the listener, they're just higher now, aren't they? In this super connected, always on age, counterfeit favor looks more like a real calling than ever before. The metrics are all skewed. Popularity, visibility, that often gets mistaken for purpose. And quick results. People jump to thinking that's divine approval. But if you don't anchor your choices in, let's say, real spiritual and strategic clarity, you could easily step through a door that looks like progress. But it actually leads you further away from your real destiny. We want to help you spot those truly divine opportunities, the ones you couldn't manufacture, and expose the fakes.
Okay, let's dig into that core confusion then. Because the problem isn't really scarcity, is it? It feels more like saturation. We're not short on opportunities, we're practically drowning in them. Imagine you're standing there, two doors, both wide open, both gleaming, promising something good, fast. But one leads to, sustainable, meaningful growth. The other looks just as good, maybe even flashier. But it's a detour, it'll suck your energy, delay your actual calling. And they look almost identical, right? At least at first.
It's fascinating because this whole pattern, this deception, it's not new at all. It's archetypal, really. Goes way back. You see it in Eden, you see it in the wilderness temptations. The tempter is, expert at packaging compromise inside something attractive, something immediate. It's almost always about offering the end result you want, but skipping the necessary process, the formation you need to go through.
Yeah, the clearest example has got to be Jesus in the wilderness, right?
Yeah.
He gets offered these three incredibly specific shortcuts. They all bypass the hard stuff, the obedience, the cost, the cross eventually.
Yeah.
Let's look at those offers. How do they map onto the pressures we feel today?
Okay, so the first one, turning stones into bread. Now, that wasn't just about physical hunger. It was about provision, yes, but without the required obedience. It was using raw power for an instant fix, basically circumventing the need to trust God's timing, his process, which is often slower.
So today, that's stone-to-bread temptation. It's like forcing instant profit, maybe. Or grabbing those quick, lucrative deals, even if it means, cutting corners ethically, just to solve an immediate cash flow problem or something.
Exactly. And then the third temptation, remember, accepting the kingdoms of the world in exchange for worship. That was the ultimate shortcut. Instant influence, global power, all without the sacrifice of the cross, straight to the throne, bypassing the journey.
Okay, but here's what's really insidious about these things, isn't it? The mechanics of the trap work because they mimic real opportunities. They borrow the look of goodness, but they disconnect it from integrity, from the long haul. So what are the key characteristics, the red flags we need to spot?
Well, the first big one is that shortcuts always promise compressed time. Always. They offer you instant fruit, but without the season of, pruning or patient development that's actually required. This whole idea that you can just skip the hard work and get the reward right now, huge warning sign.
Which leads right into the second flag, I think. Identity acceleration. It promises you the status, the security, the title, before your character is actually formed enough to handle it properly. It's like getting the microphone before you've developed the resilience, the wisdom to speak truthfully into it.
Precisely. And they also blur that line between the means and the ends. They whisper, the end justifies the compromise. If you find yourself justifying bending the rules, cutting corners because the ultimate goal is good, watch out, you're probably on a shortcut. And crucially, shortcuts often push you towards isolation. They discourage counsel. Makes sense, right? Solitary discernment is way more vulnerable to bias.
But hang on, what about that classic entrepreneur advice? Go it alone, protect your vision. Until you've proven the concept, how do we tell the difference? Are we isolating for focus, or are we isolating because deep down we know this thing won't hold up if someone looks too closely?
That's a really important distinction. Isolation for focus is usually temporary, and it's still accountable. You might be heads down, but you're still checking in with mentors, reporting progress. The isolation that comes with a shortcut, though, that's defensive. You push people away, avoid the tough questions because, yeah, deep down you suspect it won't withstand scrutiny. The second you start feeling anxious about what your most trusted advisor might say, that's probably a sign you're in dangerous isolation.
Okay, that distinction is vital. So discernment isn't passive. It's active.
Mm.
It's an art, yes, but also a discipline. True favor isn't about how many shiny opportunities pop up. It's about the alignment between the opportunity and your actual core mission. We need a way to filter all this noise, a system. And our sources lay out these 5 interlocking tests.
Mhm.
When you use them together, they bring a lot of clarity. Let's start with number 1, arguably the most important, the character or fruit test.
Right. And the question here has to be relentless and it has to be long term. What fruit does this opportunity actually produce over time? Does it lead to humility or does it feed pride? Does it build unity or does it sow division? Does it foster obedience or does it subtly encourage compromise?
Okay, help us translate fruit for someone maybe not used to that term. Let's say the results look great, revenue's up, audience is growing, but behind the scenes, the team is miserable, the culture's toxic. What are we really seeing there?
You're seeing a bad root system producing poisoned fruit, even if it looks shiny on the outside. When we talk fruit, we mean the core moral integrity, the relational health, the internal consistency. If the external metrics are great, but internally character is eroding, you're losing your peace, you're snapping at people, your team feels disposable, then that short-term success is actually damaging your long-term foundation. Success that undermines integrity. That's not success, it's a warning sign. You've got to test the trajectory, not just the initial sparkle.
Okay, so character is the foundation. What about the direction it takes you? That brings us to test number 2, the calling or purpose test. Does this door, this opportunity, genuinely advance your core mission, your vocation? Or is it mainly about boosting your personal brand, your comfort, your status?
This gets at the we mission versus the me mission, doesn't it?
Exactly. What if an opportunity pays really well, offers great stability, but it just doesn't feel like what you're meant to be doing, that thing that really lights you up?
That's the tricky part. Look, everyone needs work to pay the bills. But true purpose, your core assignment, has to prioritize outcomes that go beyond just personal gain. If an opportunity requires you to completely shift focus away from what you know deep down you were built for, maybe that's discipleship or justice work, or creating something specific or serving a particular community, then it might just be a profitable distraction, not divine direction. And the sources remind us true purpose often demands more from you, costs more energy initially, than it seems to benefit you personally right away.
Okay, moving on. Test number 3, the counsel test. This pushes back against that dangerous isolation we talked about. It's about community confirmation.
Yeah, because solitary discernment is just so incredibly vulnerable to blind spots and self-deception. We all have them. This test demands you seek out, say, at least 2 or 3 mature, trusted advisors, maybe believers, maybe strategic mentors who have absolutely no personal stake in your decision. They don't gain if you say yes, they don't lose if you say no. Wisdom is communal. It shines a light on those blind spots you can't even see yourself.
Makes total sense. But how do we know if we're genuinely seeking counsel versus just, shopping for validation, looking for people who will just cheer us on?
Oh, good question. Counsel invites hard questions. Validation just wants a high five. When you present the opportunity, don't just hype the potential payoff, the money, the visibility. Focus on the cost. Talk about the time away from family, the potential compromises, the sheer bandwidth it will eat up. If your counselors start pushing back, asking tough questions about that cost, listen very carefully. They might be seeing something you're missing.
Okay, test number 4. The peace or confirmation test. This is where I think a lot of us get confused between genuine peace and just raw excitement or anxiety. How do we tell the difference?
It's subtle. True spiritual confirmation, that sense of, yes, this is right, often shows up as this quiet, sober clarity. It's not usually a big adrenaline rush or just emotional relief. Adrenaline is fickle, right? It spikes when the opportunity looks amazing, then crashes when the hard work starts. Godly peace, however, it tends to persist despite the challenges, not just in their absence. If you feel this intense, high-pressure excitement, this urgency, like decide now or you'll miss out, that feeling is often a warning sign. It suggests you're being driven by thrill or fear, not guided by settled peace.
That's really helpful. Okay, finally, test number 5. This one I find fascinating. The provision or power test, or as you called it, the manufacturability check. This cuts right to the chase. Who gets the credit here? Could you have realistically made this happen on your own? Through your network, your money, your skills, just sheer hustle?
Yeah, because divine favor, True God-ordained opportunity often carries the sense of, well, holy impossibility about it. There's unexpected provision, or maybe a convergence of circumstances, a timing that you simply couldn't have orchestrated yourself. It feels bigger than just your own efforts, like synchronicity, almost. If you find yourself having to really force it, coerce people, bend ethical lines, manipulate timelines just to make the resources appear, that strongly suggests it's human hustle, not divine alignment. If you had to break a sweat just to pry the door open, maybe it wasn't meant for you to walk through just yet, or maybe not at all.
So putting it all together, discernment isn't some passive checklist you tick off. It's active. It's strategic survival, really. It takes courage to pause when everyone else is rushing forward, and humility to actually test what looks like an obvious blessing.
Absolutely. And we see this so clearly with the idea of the closed door being guidance, too. Think about Paul in Acts 16. The Holy Spirit actively closed doors, right? Forbade him and his team from preaching in Asia and Bithynia. These were places that, humanly speaking, looked strategically perfect for the gospel. That no must have felt like failure, like a huge missed chance, maybe even a strategic mistake on God's part.
But it wasn't failure at all. It was protection and redirection. God wasn't just withholding, he was steering them away from getting bogged down somewhere less critical
Or
to get
down.
them to the place he had prepared. It was only after those doors closed that the Macedonian call came the clear signal towards Europe. So a divine no isn't rejection, it's calibration, it's alignment.
And we can use that wisdom today with something like a pilot strategy. One of the sources shared a great example, Maya, a business owner. Her firm lands this massive tech client like overnight. Huge deal, financially a total game changer. But Maya had this nagging feeling, this unease. She suspected the client's values didn't quite mesh with her firm's long-term commitment to integrity.
All right, so the pressure was immense. Say yes quick. Fear of missing out, Phobo, was probably screaming at her.
Totally. But instead of just jumping in, she actually paused. She talked with her key advisors, that's Test 3, Council, and together they proposed a limited 6-month pilot program, not the full commitment, just a trial run. And crucially, the pilot had really sharp, clear terms about communication, expectations, deliverables.
That small step, that pilot, it allowed them to test the actual working relationship before committing their whole identity and all their resources. Smart. Super smart. And it quickly revealed the issues. The client did have mission drift. They were aggressive, disrespectful of boundaries, demanding weekend work last minute, focused only on vanity metrics, not real partnership.
So the pilot exposed it.
Exactly. It gave Maya the concrete evidence she needed to confidently decline the full multi-million-dollar contract. She preserved her firm's culture, their energy, their integrity. See, that wasn't about missing a blessing. It was strategic preservation, choosing character over just cash flow, which highlights the opposite danger, illustrated by that other example, Pastor James. He gets offered this incredibly high-profile ministry position, big salary, prestigious platform, lots of visibility, and everyone around him is immediately saying, wow, God's favor, this is it.
Right, instant celebration. But James, he started noticing these subtle, then not so subtle, pressures. The leadership wanted him to prioritize growth metrics above all else, audience numbers, big donations. But his actual calling, his core purpose, Test 2, was pastoral care, really connecting with people. So he felt this disconnect. He wisely consulted his retired mentors, Test 3 again, people outside the situation, and voiced his concerns. He felt the organization cared more about PR than people.
That pause, seeking outside counsel, was crucial. Because when he gently pushed back, asked more questions, he discovered they were actually cutting essential pastoral staff, gutting resources, specifically to pump up those visible growth metrics.
It laid bare the mission drift, the vanity at the heart of it. So James declined. He walked away from the applause, the salary, the spotlight, because he prioritized discipleship over visibility, people over platform. Test 1, he stayed true.
Wow. Two very different scenarios, but the discernment process protected both of them.
That's the core theme, really. Discernment isn't just about picking the right door. It's about converting any opportunity into faithful stewardship. And that takes courage to say no to the easy, glittery thing that everyone else calls favor. And it takes humility to insist on going through the formation process, even if it means less fame right now. The truly crowned life, the life of real impact, walks humbly into the specific things God anoints, even when they look plain or costly or demand patience.
Yeah, the sources really drive home that haste and applause, they aren't the right metrics. They aren't gospel truth.
It makes me think of that parable of the two carpentries in one of the texts. You have one builder, all about speed and flash, throws up this amazing-looking showroom in like 90 days, gets tons of attention, high fives all around, instant success, right? Then you have the other carpenter. Builds slowly, methodically, lays deep foundations, tests everything, weathers the seasons, opens a modest workshop focused on quality.
And you know how the story goes. 10 years later, a big storm hits. The flashy showroom, built on shallow ground, collapses under pressure. The second workshop, solid foundation, stands strong. It's still serving the community,
Yeah.
training apprentices generations later.
Exactly. God calls us to be carpenters, building something solid, not just showmen chasing applause. So let's bring it home for you, the listener. Think about one opportunity that's looming in your life right now. It could be a job offer, an investment, maybe a relationship decision. Forget the immediate appeal, the cost of saying yes today. Ask yourself this instead. What would it cost you in terms of character, integrity, focus to do this thing faithfully for the next 5 years? Prioritizing your core mission, your values, seeking counsel, even if it means less visibility, less money, less applause in the short run. Let that question start to reorient your decisions, moving away from just short-term expedience towards lasting, faithful stewardship.